Carboni, and I'm bringing you a quick video for my psychobiology favorite part of the brain project. I'm going to be talking about the cerebellum and its functions, as well as kind of its possible role in autism spectrum disorder, as a way of illustrating its function, since this is a fairly recent topic that's come up in the literature. And so I wanted to use that to illustrate kind of the functions of the cerebellum. So first of all, let's talk about like the functions, general roles and functions. So the cerebellum literally means little brain, and it does in fact look like a little brain. You can see it here on the slide, and it has over half of the total neurons in the brain. It was originally seen as a center for motor control, and it integrates sensory feedback and motor commands and the timing of movements. We now know it also has some cognitive roles. For example, it plays a role in spatial reasoning, like figuring out where yourself and objects are in space, as well as having pathways to the prefrontal cortex, which makes us think it's got a role in executive functioning. It might have a role in regulating our emotions, and these things make sense if you think about the connection to the prefrontal cortex. And it's not on the slide, but they might have some social, the cerebellum might have a social component as well, and some articles even talk about it having a little bit of a linguistic role, which is certainly interesting. Alright, quick detour. I'm going to talk about the role of the cerebellum in autism spectrum disorder. But first, let's do a quick run through of what that is. It's a neurodevelopmental disorder that affects social and cognitive behavior and involves low social, emotional reciprocity and trouble with social cues, stereotype repetitive behaviors, intellectual disability, and some impairments in coordination and language. So you can kind of see how this would be affected by cerebellum. Alright, so let's talk about how dysfunction of the cerebellum materializes. And so damage and malformation of the cerebellum are in fact risk factors for ASD and ASD-like features, and more pathology of this area is associated with more clinical features, which is mentioned in the textbook for this class, Discovering Behavioral Neuroscience. I have this image here, not my image, it's from Rodriguez et al. It kind of shows which areas have the most pathology in autism spectrum disorder. You can see areas kind of highlighted in the greenish yellow are the most affected, and particularly regions 7 and 6 and 7 are most effective, and some of the specific areas implicated in ASD are language, working memory, spatial reasoning, emotional processing, and executive functioning. So that kind of tracks with the symptoms of ASD and also the functions I just talked about of the cerebellum. So you can see how that would kind of materialize. And it's interesting how those connections to the prefrontal cortex affect the role of the cerebellum. Another thing that isn't on the slide, but we have some evidence that the cerebellum might actually change differently over the course of the lifespan in individuals with ASD, and this is different than people without it, and that's being studied, but it's certainly interesting. Alright, well that's all I have. Here are my references. This was just a quick project, so I only used 3, but I have our textbook, and I have a mini review that talks about the alterations in autism, and then I have another one that talks about roles and functions of autism, and yeah, that's all I have. So hopefully you learned something, but yeah.